Joe Rogan, if you go on Joe Rogan, I think it's like, 60, 70, 80 million people saw Trump on Joe Rogan, right? But if you give an interview to the Washington Post, it's not the same level of, breaking through.
Well, then maybe Kamala should have went on Joe Rogan.
She absolutely
or this show.
That's
my point.
Bill Maher got into a tense debate with a feminist guest on Real Time. As the conversation shifted to Barack Obama, feminism, and politics, the exchange became more heated. Maher challenged several of her arguments and pushed back throughout the discussion. The back and forth grew more intense as both sides defended their views. Let's watch the clip and see how the debate unfolded.
Okay, then let's go to a different one. Does Obama calling New York City mayor candidate Zohran Mamdani normalize his socialist politics? Yes, we don't know what Obama said to him, but Obama does this a lot. He kind of like puts his thumb on the scale behind the scenes. Remember he tried to get Ruth Bader Ginsburg to quit. That didn't work that time. I think he kind of like put his thumb on the scale of Hillary getting the nomination in 2016 when Biden thought maybe it was his turn. He's a cagey behind-the-scenes player, and so apparently, what it looks like to me, reading between the lines, is Obama, a centrist, sees this, to say the least, socialist. Some people would say communist, because he says capitalism is theft. That is kind of what communists say. Says this guy is going to be the face of the Democratic Party, and every Democrat across the country is going to have to get the question, Mamdani did this, Mamdani said this, do you agree? And then what are the Democrats going to do? So is that how you read Obama in New York?
Just a little color on the Mamdani, because I live in New York, where this is all anyone talks about. He is doing a ton of these meetings with real estate people, with the people who really own the city, the real estate people, and the sort of the New York-y business leaders, and he's talking to people. And he's made some, he says that he's going to keep a lot of people on. And, again, the question with these liberal mayors is, do you have the infrastructure? Because remember, the city is it's a job that's largely a management job and not an ideological job. So will you have the managers?
He certainly doesn't see it that way.
But will you have the managers to make the city work? And I think that's going to be the question.
What does Mamdani do for a living?
Good question, but not a question that you couldn't ask for a lot of people running for office.
True. Most of them are lawyers, though.
Yeah, he was a city councilman. He's doing the normal thing that you go to the mayor's position from another position in city government.
Right.
That's what Cuomo is making a big stink about, the fact that he has a not a rent-free, but a rent-controlled apartment.
Yeah.
And
rent stabilized.
Rent stabilized, which is, I like Andrew, but what a bullshit issue. He's saying, your parents are rich. Okay, who says, my parents are going to pay my rent? He's 33 years old. The parents have nothing to do with it. His parent could be Bill Gates.
Well, also, Cuomo hasn't lived in New York. He just recently moved back into the city.
Right, but he's a New Yorker.
He's living in the country.
Okay, but he was the governor. They give them a mansion in Albany. I don't think he's unqualified to run the city of New York. I think he's rather familiar with New York. Andrew Cuomo.
Eric Adams is living in New Jersey.
Yeah, so. Well, he was living in New Jersey, but now he
never
lives
gave
in
up that
Gracie
apartment.
Mansion.
Yeah,
he didn't.
That's weird.
That's another thing.
Wow. That's worse than the turkey. Okay. I read this today. Costco is now stopping selling.
I do not think the biggest issue with Zohran Mamdani is that he lives in a rent-controlled apartment. That really is not what matters most. The bigger issue, in my opinion, is that he supports socialist policies. If people want to judge him, they should focus on the ideas he promotes rather than where he lives. Another thing worth noticing is that some of the major promises he made during his campaign have proven difficult to deliver. For example, he talked about making public transportation free, but later admitted that it could not be done. That is not unique to one political party. Politicians from many different groups often make huge promises during campaigns, only to say later that they cannot keep them. It happens so often that many voters have become skeptical whenever they hear big campaign promises.
Mifepristone?
Mifepristone.
Thank you. This is the birth control pill?
It's actually an abortion pill.
Abortion pill.
Yeah.
And they said lack of demand. That's why they're not going to sell it anymore. Now, Costco, isn't that where you buy things in bulk? That's the first thing that struck me. It's like, who needs the abortion pill in bulk? How big of a hoe do you have to be to buy your abortion pills at Costco?
Yeah, that's a little
I'm
crazy.
making the sad feminist face. But okay, so two things about mifepristone.
Yes.
It is also used for a bunch of other things that aren't necessarily abortions. I could go into it, but it's too gross.
Right.
But there's lots of uterine things that involve mifepristone, and it's a two-drug series. The other thing is, like with birth control, a lot of birth control pills, a lot of these things were covered by insurance and aren't anymore, or are being phased out under the new sort of, because they seem woke. The thing I would say about birth control is there are a lot of people who are on birth control and they're not on it for birth control. They're on it to, all sorts of really, to control their symptoms of other stuff, right, of hormones. And so I do think that these drugs they're about mifepristone, but they're also about larger issues. People use them for other stuff.
Just don't take it in the bathroom at Costco. Really, I would want a little more.
I did laugh when Bill Maher joked about buying abortion pills in bulk at Costco. It was a funny line, but it also led into a larger discussion. The guest argued that birth control can help regulate hormones and provide other health benefits. My view is different. Many women have shared stories about experiencing weight gain, anxiety, depression, or other side effects while taking birth control. Some later receive additional medication to treat those new symptoms, which can create another cycle of treatment. I have personally known people who struggled with those kinds of experiences. That does not mean everyone has the same outcome, but it does raise important questions about side effects and whether patients are fully informed before starting treatment.
I would want a little more privacy if I was buying an abortion drug than in the line at Costco. I'm sorry.
All right. Let me broaden this out a little bit. Were you surprised that the abortion issue, which many of us thought was going to be the one that put the Democrats over the top, was not the issue that they thought it was going to be? Neither was democracy, by the way.
Yes, they turned out to be.
Those were two issues that they were counting on people to care about more than they did. What do you make of that?
I mean, I think there was a larger problem, which was a structural problem, which is the mainstream media in 2016 was much bigger than it was in 2024. It was so much smaller, and they had so much trouble breaking through about anything. Joe Rogan, if you go on Joe Rogan, I think it's like, 60, 70, 80 million people saw Trump on Joe Rogan, right? But if you give an interview to the Washington Post, it's not the same level of, breaking through.
Well, then maybe Kamala should have went on Joe Rogan.
She absolutely
or this show.
That's
my point.
And I think you have the point.
I think Bill Maher makes a fair point here. If I remember correctly, Joe Rogan invited Kamala Harris onto his podcast, but the interview only moved forward if it could happen under conditions that worked for her team. That reportedly included changing the location and discussing the format in advance. Rogan preferred to keep the interview on his own show and in his usual style, saying that was the best way to have an honest conversation. In the end, the interview never happened. Donald Trump, on the other hand, appeared on Rogan's podcast. From this perspective, some people argue that candidates are more comfortable when they can control the setting, while others believe open interviews reveal how well they can handle unexpected questions.
The Democrats should go everywhere is 100% right. You cannot, there is no world in which an elected can win if they don't go on Joe Rogan and the Milk Boys and you and everything else.
If you're afraid of the people who voted for you, you're just a frafraidy cat.
Yeah.
I mean,
but you just can't win.
It's just ridiculous.
And if you don't go everywhere, then you're not anywhere. And that's it.
That's right.
They made it a state issue. It's no longer a federal issue.
Right, but people live in states.
It is true that Donald Trump appeared on several large online shows, including podcasts and live streams with popular creators, while Kamala Harris made fewer appearances on those types of platforms. Many people have debated whether that helped shape public opinion during the campaign. Bill Maher argued that politicians should be willing to speak in settings where they cannot fully control the conversation. Whether you agree or disagree, it is an interesting point to discuss. Let me know what you think about Bill Maher's debate with his guest on Real Time. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next upload.